Sodium. Let's look at the element sodium. Sources. Sodium occurs in most soils, often in similar or lower levels than potassium. Excessive amounts may be found in arid or semi-arid environments. We have what we call saline or sodic soils. There is a difference between these two that we're going to get into. When we look at saline soil, we are talking about a high concentration of soluble salts in the soil solutions. These do not have to be typical salt, which is sodium chloride. This may be a high concentration of other salts, which many times are sodium-based. pH is normally lower than 8.5, so the pH is not extremely high. But the concentration of salts gives you a high osmotic potential in the soil. This osmotic potential is negative, which means it would tend to draw water out of the plant. Plants, therefore, must make the inner cell concentration in their cytoplasm high with ions in order to avoid absorbing ions from the outside. The other thing about saline soils is they tend to inhibit uptake of other elements because you've got so much sodium in there. The sodium often displaces ions off the cation exchange capacity, and therefore it inhibits the uptake of other elements because they may not make it across that gradient. We have what we call sodic soils. Sodic soils have a substantial proportion of sodium ions in the cation exchange capacity. If you've got a lot of sodium ions, that means the other ions are not there. These often have a pH of above 8.5. The osmotic pressure is not elevated by the number of sodium ions on the exchange sites. The number of sodium ions on the exchange sites is elevated. This interferes with the nutrition as the soil exchange sites are filled with sodium. Sodium does not allow other ions to be bound there, ready for exchange with the plants. These soils also tend to have a poor physical structure. When we talked about calcium, calcium improves structure of the soil because it is a divalent cation and it binds particles together. Sodium is a monovalent cation, which does not bind particles together, and this causes the soil to have poor physical structure. Salinization. Some of these things occur because of salinization. Primary salinization occurs because you have geological deposition of sodium in drying lakes and seas. When a lake or a sea starts to dry, the concentration of ions increases because you have the same number of ions in a smaller volume. Geologically, over time, this created vast salt deposits. As the seawater dries down, the salt concentration eventually gets to the point where it forms halite or rock salt. Depending on the volume of sea, this can amount to thousands of tons of salt that would get deposited. If it is buried, it turns into rock. If it is not, it's just laying on the top of the area. This will give you a salty environment. Secondary salinization comes from the impact of humans. We have to grow plants. As we grow plants, we often use irrigation water. If the irrigation water has too much salt in it, as we add the irrigation water to the soil, the water will be picked up by the plant or it will evaporate off. We've got to add more irrigation water, which means more salt. After a certain period of time, we end up with too much salt in the area. This was important in the decline of certain civilizations. If you only have one source of water and it's not fresh water with no salt in it, then when you apply it to your crops, you are adding more and more salt. Eventually you get to the point where you can't grow anything because the soil is too salty. That will decimate a civilization. There have been many civilizations in the past that have had salinization destroy crops. Excess irrigation with water containing salt is most severe in arid and semi-arid areas. If you look at the southeastern United States moving along the eastern seaboard, we get a lot of rain because of the high humidity in the air that comes off of the Gulf. Once you start getting west of the Mississippi, those weather fronts don't bring as much water in. Therefore, you have a decreased amount of water. They're using a lot of groundwater in order to irrigate. This groundwater may have problems with salinization. If you look at California and the far west, they're getting almost all irrigation water out of the ground. They're running into problems because you don't have fresh water coming in out of the clouds, or they are recharging groundwater using water that came from precipitation. The fresh water that comes in out of clouds is basically devoid of salt. Metabolic functions. There are some euhalophytes. Breaking down the word, Eu means true, halo means salt. These are plants that tolerate salty environments. They have adapted to salty environments by growing on coastal areas. These euhalophytes and some C4 species Remember, C4 species are those that do C4 photosynthesis, where the first stable intermediate is a 4-carbon sugar instead of a 3-carbon sugar. These euhalophytes and some C4 species benefit from salt or sodium chloride. These plants have adapted to drier, more light-intense environments and environments where salt is always present. Salt could be considered a functional element for these because it provides growth for some, but not for everything. Succulent halophytes, often in the Chaetopodiaceae, benefit from medium to high levels of sodium. Therefore, sodium appears to be a functional element. The plants use sodium for ion exchange. C4 plants are the same way. Sodium appears to be essential for some C4 grasses. These are grasses that occur in areas where you've got high light intensity, where water may or may not be a factor. In these, the pyruvate sodium cotransport is a step necessary for the regeneration of phospholynyl pyruvate and the fixation of carbon dioxide. There's also a kinase that regulates the activity of PEP carboxylation that also uses sodium. Toxicity. Excess sodium interferes with the uptake of potassium, calcium, and magnesium. You could put a lot of other things on there because in the pecking order, sodium comes right after hydrogen as being able to remove things from cation exchange. This is why when we analyze soils, we often use a sodium-based solution. The sodium-based solution causes the remaining things, the calcium, the potassium, the magnesium, to be removed from the exchange capacity. Osmotic stress increases bypass flow of water and sodium into shoots through damaged roots. This osmotic stress is occurring not because the plant is trying to pick up sodium, but because the amount of sodium damages the roots. It overtaxes the exchange capacity and will pull water in with it. These osmotic challenges are the root of the problem, no pun intended. And that is not the toxicity of sodium as such. Sodium causes toxicity because of its ability to be present in too great a quantity, and that would cause water to move out and damage membranes. Overall, sodium may be essential for some C4 species. Sodium is beneficial to the growth of euhalophytes. Sodium may stimulate the growth of some species with an evolutionary history in saline environments. Therefore, there appears to be some need for sodium in certain plants. The question is, can we call it a functional nutrient? We cannot call it an essential nutrient, but in some plants it appears to be quite important in their functioning.